Hi, my name is Ashley Johnson, and today I would like to inform you about post-traumatic stress disorder and how it affects the human brain. Did you know anyone can develop post-traumatic stress disorder if they've been exposed to trauma? These traumas can include, but are certainly not limited to, natural disasters, a car crash, war, or abuse of any kind. Post-traumatic stress disorder, often abbreviated PTSD, is a debilitating mental health condition that is triggered in some individuals after being exposed to a highly traumatic event, as stated by Robert Butler in his 2016 article, Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, published online. Individuals like myself suffer from severe anxiety, flashbacks, have trouble sleeping and have nightmares, are prone to angry outbursts, feel lonely, overworried, anxious, or depressed. So before we can understand how the PTSD affects the brain, we have to cover how a healthy brain functions. In an interview with licensed professional counselor and certified clinical trauma professional, Esther Griffin DeVita, on August 12th, she explained the areas of the brain, starting with the limbic system. The limbic system is a primitive, primal part of the brain. It's the lizard brain. It makes all the split-second decisions. The limbic system is made up of several structures, but we're only going to focus on two, the amygdala and the hippocampus. So let's take a look at anatomy of the brain from a 2016 article called Brain Anatomy in the Limbic System by Bright Focus Foundation. So we're going to start with talking about the amygdala, which is highlighted in pink here, and it's a small structure located at almost the exact center of the brain. As explained by Daniel W. Group in his 2011 article, Anxiety Disorders in the Amygdala, published online, the amygdala is a brain region involved in responding both to certain immediate threats as well as to conditions of uncertainty that require heightened vigilance and environmental monitoring. Heightened vigilance and environmental monitoring. That sounds really healthy in the right aspect. Think about walking through a dark parking lot alone at night. You want to be more aware of what's going on around you. So let's move on to the hippocampus. The hippocampus are these two structures on either side of the amygdala. And the hippocampus plays a vital role in memory as it records all sensory input, but it records it like a tape. So when you see something or you touch something, the hippocampus is recording everything. But it doesn't have emotions or reasons attached to it, so it wouldn't really make sense unless the rest of the process occurs. So we move on to the medial prefrontal cortex, the area in orange. And this acts like an on and off switch. It determines if the body is in a safe environment or an unsafe environment. And if it's in an unsafe environment, it stops the process of forming memories. But if you're in a safe environment, the hippocampus is then allowed to send those tape recordings or memories to the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the human part of the brain, and it's more developed in us than any other mammal. It's in charge of reasoning, decision-making, imagination, and attaching meaning and emotions to those tape recordings we talked about earlier. So that's how a healthy brain should function. So how does a PTSD brain function? Well, a person develops PTSD when they have faced one or more life or death situations and their brain gets stuck in that unsafe position. So we start by, the limbic system starts working overdrive because the medial prefrontal cortex is stuck in unsafe, so your body thinks it's in survival mode all the time. So the amygdala is constantly making fight or flight decisions, so everything is like a disaster, everything needs to be solved right now. The hippocampus is trying to take in all this extra information because your body thinks that you're in a disaster zone, so it's trying to take in as much information as possible to help you survive that situation. Because the limbic system is working in overdrive, it needs more glucose or more brain food. So the prefrontal cortex is where that brain food comes from. So it's not working and functioning correctly, so you're not thinking correctly, and your imagination starts to go, and your memory starts to go, because you're not transferring those tape recordings up there to be filed. So I like to talk about an analogy when kind of talking about all this stuff to make it a little easier. So imagine you're walking down in the woods, you're on a nice hike, it's sunny, and the birds are singing, maybe you can hear a river, and all of a sudden a bear crosses your path. And in that split second, you're like, what am I going to do? Am I going to run? Am I going to play dead? What do I need to do? So your body is preparing to do one of those things, fight or flight. So the hippocampus and the amygdala are trying to decide what to respond to. Adrenaline is released in your body, your heart rate speeds up in response to being able to survive. So you go home, the bear wanders off, everything's okay. You go home and you relax. And you store that memory for later in case you ever come across another bear, so you know how to survive. When a person with PTSD goes home, they can't get out of that state of shock, that state of emergency, and it's almost like the bear follows them home. You can't get away from that feeling of something's going wrong, I need to solve it right now, panicking, being hyper-vigilant, and alert of what's going on around you. So in summary, we covered how a healthy brain functions and how a person with PTSD's brain functions differently, as well as how a person with PTSD may function a little differently in life. PTSD does not mean a person is crazy, weak, or unstable. It means they are living with a brain that's in an unhealthy, altered state because of past trauma they experienced. Thank you.
Good job.